There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't show up in grand gestures or loud words. It lives in the small things, in the way someone pauses before they speak, the way they smile even when their eyes look tired, the way they show kindness without needing recognition. These are not random acts. These are tiny signs, signs that someone has been through hell and back and chose to come out softer, not harder. You see, people who've endured real pain rarely announce it. They carry it like a secret language only other survivors understand. They know the weight of silence, the ache of pretending everything's fine, and the beauty of small victories like getting out of bed on the days when everything inside them wants to give up. One of the first tiny signs is their calm, not the kind that comes from ignorance or avoidance, but the calm born from chaos. They've been through storms that tore apart everything they once depended on, and in rebuilding, they learned that peace isn't found in control, it's found in surrender. So when life shakes, they no longer panic, they breathe. That's not indifference, that's mastery. Another sign is how they listen, really listen. People who have suffered deeply have learned the value of being heard without judgment. So when someone speaks to them, they don't rush to fix or compare, they just hold space. Their empathy runs deep because they remember what it felt like when nobody understood their pain. Their presence becomes medicine. Quiet, steady, safe. Then there's their gratitude. It's not the performative kind, it's subtle, humble, real. When you've lost everything, your health, your faith, your identity, maybe even your will to live, every small thing that remains starts to feel sacred. A sunrise, a kind word, a day without tears, these become miracles. Survivors of darkness don't chase happiness, they appreciate peace. Look closely, and you'll see another sign. They no longer need to win arguments. They've learned that peace of mind is more valuable than being right. They stop chasing validation because they've already faced the deepest rejection from life itself and survived. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that nothing outside you can destroy what you've rebuilt within. People who've been through hell often apologize less and forgive more. They know that everyone's fighting battles unseen. They forgive not because they forget, but because they refuse to let pain own them twice. They set boundaries, not walls. They've learned that love without self-respect is just self-destruction in disguise. Another subtle sign, their humor. Survivors often laugh differently, not from ignorance but from perspective. They've learned that life is too fragile to waste on bitterness. Their laughter carries wisdom. It says, I've seen worse and I'm still here. And perhaps the most powerful sign of all, they move through the world with gentleness. Gentleness is not a weakness, it's evidence of deep strength. Only those who have faced cruelty and loss can understand the courage it takes to remain kind. When someone has walked through their own darkness and found light again, they stop judging others for their shadows. They see the pain behind anger, the fear behind arrogance, the insecurity behind control. Their empathy doesn't make them naive, it makes them unbreakable. Because when you've lived through hell, you stop being afraid of fire. So, if you ever meet someone who carries quiet eyes, steady energy, and soft words, don't mistake their calm for emptiness. It took them years to earn that peace. Behind every gentle soul is a story of survival. Behind every smile that looks effortless is 1,000 moments of choosing to keep going. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about people who've been through hell and back. They've learned that broken things can still shine, that love can return, that hope can be rebuilt from ashes, that even when everything falls apart, the heart still knows how to rise. So the next time you meet someone whose strength whispers instead of shouts, listen closely. Because those who've been through the fire are often the ones who now carry the light. There is a quiet, almost invisible kind of power that exists in those who have walked through their deepest pain and chosen to stay soft. It's the kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't demand attention, and doesn't need to prove itself. It's the kind of power that is born in the silence between heartbreaks, in the tears no one sees, in the moments when everything inside you wants to harden, but something wiser whispers, "Stay gentle." The strength in softness is not the strength of muscle or domination. It's the strength of a heart that refuses to turn cold. It's the strength of someone who could have chosen bitterness, but instead chose to keep loving, to keep believing, to keep showing up even when the world gave them every reason not to. When a person goes through hell, real hell, they discover the raw, naked truth about themselves. Pain strips away pretense. It takes away the masks, the illusions of control, the shallow layers of ego. It leaves you exposed, trembling, face to face with your own humanity. And it's in that stripped down place, that sacred space of vulnerability, that true strength begins to take root. Softness isn't the absence of pain, it's the decision to stay human in the midst of it. It's looking at your wounds and saying, "You may have hurt me, but you will not define me." People often misunderstand softness. They see it as weakness, as fragility, as something to protect against in a world that rewards hardness. But true softness, the kind born from suffering, is anything but fragile. It takes immense courage to remain gentle in a world that has tried to break you. It takes extraordinary bravery to keep your heart open after it's been shattered. The one who still believes in kindness after betrayal, who still chooses love after rejection, who still trusts after being deceived. That person carries a power that the unbroken will never understand. The strength in softness reveals itself in the small, unspoken moments. In the way a person forgives when they could have sought revenge. In the way they listen deeply instead of judging. In the way they offer compassion to those who don't deserve it. They have seen enough darkness to understand that adding more cruelty to the world changes nothing. They have learned that peace begins not in the outer world, but within the quiet chambers of the heart. Their softness is a conscious choice, an act of defiance against everything that tried to harden them. When someone has been through profound suffering, they start to value softness in others too. They stop admiring those who seem unbothered or invincible, and instead look for those who can cry without shame, those who can apologize without pride, those who can admit, "I don't know," without fear. They recognize that gentleness requires a kind of courage that the world doesn't always celebrate. It's easy to close your heart. It's easy to numb yourself. It's easy to build walls and call them boundaries. But it takes wisdom to discern when to guard and when to open. It takes strength to be soft enough to still feel. Softness also changes how a person approaches relationships. A woman who has been through her personal hell learns that connection is not about control or perfection. It's about presence. She listens differently, speaks differently, and loves differently. She knows that everyone carries invisible wounds. So she moves through life with grace. When someone hurts her, she doesn't react with the same poison. She steps back, breathes, and responds from a place of grounded strength. She has learned that the one who stays calm in the storm is the one who holds true power. And yet, softness is not passive. It is not surrender in the way the world defines it. It is surrender in a deeper, spiritual sense, the surrender of resistance. The person who embraces softness stops fighting everything they cannot control. They stop clinging to expectations and start allowing life to flow as it is. This doesn't mean they stop caring. It means they have learned the difference between control and influence. They can influence the energy they bring to each moment. Calm, compassion, courage. But they no longer try to control what others do or how life unfolds. That kind of acceptance is an advanced form of strength. There is a deep peace that comes with softness, It's the peace of someone who has already faced their worst fear and survived. They no longer need to defend themselves against imagined threats because they know they can endure real ones. They don't rush to prove their worth because they've already wrestled with the question of whether they have any. They know now that worth isn't something you earn, it's something you reclaim. Quietly, fiercely, and without apology. Their softness becomes their shield, not their weakness. It protects their energy, their joy, their capacity to love. Softness also allows healing to continue. A hardened heart cannot heal because it cannot feel. Pain must be acknowledged to be released. And only softness allows that kind of vulnerability. When someone has the courage to stay soft, they are able to weep, to grieve, to process. And through that process, they begin to transform their wounds into wisdom. Softness is the soil in which growth happens. Hardness may protect, but it also suffocates. Softness opens, it breathes, it allows new life to take root. There is something profoundly magnetic about people who have found strength in their softness. You can feel it when they walk into a room. There's a calmness about them that doesn't come from ignorance, but from deep understanding. They are not easily triggered because they've seen worse. They don't gossip because they understand the cost of cruelty. They don't chase people because they've learned that what's meant for them will never need to be forced. Their energy is steady, soothing, grounding. They make others feel safe simply by being. Softness, in its truest form, is power under control. It's knowing you could destroy, but choosing to heal. It's knowing you could walk away in anger, but instead walking away in peace. It's speaking your truth without raising your voice. It's forgiving, not because the other person deserves it, but because you do. Softness is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about acknowledging that things are hard and still showing up with grace. It's about knowing your heart is your greatest strength and refusing to let pain change that truth. The strength in softness is the quiet revolution of the human spirit. It says, I have been broken, but I am not bitter. I have been hurt, but I am still kind. I have been disappointed, but I still believe. It's a form of resilience that doesn't look impressive on the surface, but runs deeper than anything else. It's not built on denial. It's built on acceptance, not on force, but on flow. Those who have found strength in their softness are the ones who can love without fear, forgive without conditions, and walk away without hate. They don't carry resentment because they've made peace with their past. They don't fear loss because they've already learned how to rebuild. They understand that true strength is not about never breaking, it's about breaking open and letting light pour through the cracks. In a world that tells us to toughen up, to armor our hearts, to hide our tenderness, remember this: softness is not the opposite of strength. It is the highest form of it, because anyone can be hard when life hurts, but it takes a warrior of the spirit to stay soft. There comes a time in every person's life when pain knocks at the door and refuses to leave. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about your plans, your dreams, or your stability. It enters uninvited, through heartbreak, betrayal, loss, or the slow erosion of faith in people and in yourself. Most people, when they meet that kind of pain, close off. It's a natural instinct to protect, to hide, to shield what's left of your heart from further damage. But there are a few rare souls who make a different choice. They find the courage to stay open even when it hurts. They learn that real strength isn't in closing down, but in remaining open to life, love, and connection, despite the risk of being hurt again. Staying open after pain is not naivete. It's not denial. It's a deliberate, conscious act of bravery. It means standing in the ruins of what you once believed in and saying, I still choose to trust. I still choose to love. I still choose to hope. It's not about pretending the past didn't happen or that it didn't leave scars. It's about understanding that the only way to truly live again is to keep your heart available to the world. No matter how many times it's been bruised, closing your heart may feel safe, but it also becomes a prison. One that keeps the pain out, yes, but also keeps joy from getting in. Those who have been through hell and back understand this truth intimately. They know that when pain takes everything from you, it also gives you one gift: clarity. You begin to see that the walls you build to protect yourself also isolate you from life. You realize that you can spend years guarding your heart and still feel lonely, still ache for connection, still crave the warmth of being known. The courage to stay open is born in that realization that numbness is not peace, and that vulnerability, though terrifying, is the only path to real healing. To stay open after being hurt means to live with your heart exposed. It means allowing yourself to be seen, truly seen, without filters, without masks, without the armor that the world tells you to wear. It's standing before life with all your imperfections and saying, "This is me. This is what I've learned, what I've lost, and what I'm still hoping for." That kind of openness is sacred. It's not about being weak, it's about being honest. Because honesty is where healing begins. The people who have mastered this kind of openness often radiate a strange kind of peace. You can feel it in their presence. They don't need to prove anything. They don't play emotional games. They love deeply, but with boundaries that honor their worth. They have learned that being open doesn't mean allowing everyone access. It means keeping your heart free from bitterness. They choose openness not because it's easy, but because they know the alternative. A life lived behind emotional walls is far more painful in the end. Openness after pain also means allowing life to surprise you again. When you've been hurt, your mind starts predicting disappointment. You expect the worst, so you never get disappointed. But in doing so, you also block the best from reaching you. The courage to stay open means taking a leap into uncertainty again. Applying for that opportunity after rejection. Trusting a friend after betrayal. Believing in love after heartbreak. It's saying, even though I have every reason to give up, I will not let pain dictate my future. That's what separates survivors from the living. Survivors endure, but the open-hearted live. It takes courage to be open, because openness requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is terrifying for most people. It means exposing your fears, your hopes, your flaws, all the things that could be used against you. But the truth is, vulnerability is where connection begins. When you dare to be open, you give others permission to be human too. You create spaces where truth can exist, where healing can happen, where love can grow. Without openness, everything stays on the surface. Shallow, temporary, safe but lifeless. The ones who've walked through fire know that depth only comes through openness, and they value it above comfort. The courage to stay open also means forgiving life for its unfairness. When you've been betrayed, abandoned, or broken, you start to believe that the world is cruel. Staying open means making peace with what happened without letting it harden you. It's the quiet whisper, "I will not become like what hurt me." It's understanding that pain is a teacher, not a verdict. It teaches compassion, empathy, and humility, if you let it. And the only way to receive those lessons is by staying open to them, not resisting them. People who've been through hell often learn that openness is not about trusting everyone. It's about trusting themselves again. It's about trusting that they can handle whatever life brings, that they can survive loss, and that they can love without losing themselves. When you trust yourself, staying open no longer feels dangerous. You know you'll be okay no matter the outcome. That's the foundation of emotional courage, not control, but confidence in your own resilience. There's also a quiet beauty in how openness changes relationships. A person who stays open after being hurt loves differently. Their love is not desperate or demanding. It's grounded, peaceful, free of manipulation. They no longer cling, because they understand that love that's meant to stay will never need to be forced. They no longer chase approval, because they've learned that validation from others is temporary, but connection with oneself is eternal. They love with their whole heart, but they no longer lose themselves in the process. That kind of love, honest, fearless, whole, can only come from someone who has had the courage to stay open. Staying open also means allowing emotions to flow rather than suppressing them. People who have been through trauma often learn that what is not expressed becomes trapped. They allow themselves to cry when they need to laugh loudly, to rest deeply. They stop apologizing for feeling. They've learned that emotions are not a weakness. They're the language of the soul. To feel fully is to live fully, and to live fully is to stay open to everything. The joy, the pain, the uncertainty, the beauty. In the end, the courage to stay open is the courage to remain human. It's the decision to keep your heart tender in a world that celebrates indifference. It's choosing connection over control, compassion over cynicism, hope over fear. It's the strength to say, even though I have scars, I will not close myself to life. Those who have been through hell and back know that it's not the pain that destroys you. It's the closing down. Once your heart closes, life becomes smaller, colder, dimmer. But when you stay open, even after everything, you invite light back in. There's something profoundly moving about those who live with open hearts after heartbreak. They walk with quiet grace. They're not afraid to look others in the eye, not afraid to speak from truth, not afraid to feel deeply. They don't see vulnerability as a risk. They see it as a gift. The bridge that connects soul to soul. They are not untouched by pain. They are transformed by it. They carry their openness like a flame, small but steady, fragile but enduring, lighting the way for others who are still afraid of the dark. The courage to stay open is not a destination, it's a daily choice. Every morning, you choose to believe again. Every night, you let go again. Every time someone disappoints you, you choose not to close. And with every choice, your heart grows stronger, wiser, freer. That is the paradox of pain. It can either imprison you or set you free. The difference lies in whether you choose to stay open. Because when you stay open after being broken, you don't just heal, you evolve. You become softer yet stronger, gentler yet braver, wounded yet whole. You realize that openness is not the absence of pain, it is the triumph over it. And that kind of courage, quiet, steady, unyielding, is what turns survivors into beacons of light for the rest of the world. There is a certain calm that only those who have faced chaos can understand. A stillness that doesn't come from a lack of storms, but from surviving them. It's not the calm of naivety or ignorance. It's the calm that comes after you've been broken open, stripped of all illusions, and forced to rebuild from the wreckage. This kind of calm doesn't happen overnight. It is forged through pain, patience, and the deep acceptance that life is not meant to be controlled, only embraced. When a person has been through hell and back, they stop fearing the storm because they've already learned how to stand in the rain without drowning. The calm after the storm is one of life's quiet miracles. It's the peace that arrives after years of inner battles. When the noise inside your head finally begins to fade. It's when the same things that used to trigger panic now only bring a deep breath. It's when you stop needing to react to everything because you realize not everything deserves your energy. That calm is not indifference. It's mastery. It's the wisdom of someone who has learned that peace is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of surrender. When you've lived through emotional chaos, heartbreak, loss, trauma, betrayal, you come to understand that not all battles are meant to be fought. You learn to pick your peace over your pride. The calm after the storm doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you no longer chase outcomes, people, or explanations. You stop forcing closure because you understand that not everything broken needs fixing, and not every story gets a perfect ending. You begin to trust the flow of life. You learn that sometimes what you lose is exactly what was keeping you from growing. That realization is what gives birth to calm, the kind that no longer trembles before uncertainty. The person who has found calm after chaos no longer lives in constant resistance. They have surrendered not in defeat but in acceptance. They have made peace with the fact that some things are beyond their control. People will leave, plans will fail, hearts will break, and life will change. But what they can control is their inner state, their response, their breath. They realize that inner stillness is their greatest power. It's what keeps them steady when the world shakes. It's what allows them to sit in silence without needing to escape themselves. It's what allows them to see clearly when others are blinded by fear. The calm after the storm also changes how a person sees life. When you've walked through darkness, you begin to appreciate light differently. The simple things, a quiet morning, a genuine smile, a moment of laughter, become treasures. You no longer need drama to feel alive. You no longer chase intensity because you've learned the beauty of balance. The same heart that once lived in turbulence now craves peace more than anything. It no longer feeds on chaos, it thrives on stillness. That shift is profound. It's the difference between surviving and truly living. You start to understand that calm is not passive. It's not about sitting still and doing nothing. It's about responding with intention rather than reacting out of emotion. It's about having the strength to pause when everything in you wants to scream. It's about knowing when to walk away and when to stay silent. The calm after the storm gives you perspective, the ability to see that not every battle is a reflection of your worth. You learn that your peace is too expensive to be traded for someone else's chaos. This kind of calm doesn't mean life stops testing you. The storms still come. Disappointment, loss, confusion, but your relationship with them changes. You don't run from them anymore. You face them with steady eyes. You've learned that storms don't last forever and that they often bring clarity. You no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What is this teaching me?" That single shift in perspective is what transforms pain into growth and chaos into calm. People who have been through the storm develop a grounded energy that others can feel. They speak slower, listen deeper, and move with purpose. They don't rush to fill silence because they're comfortable in it. They don't react to provocation because they've mastered their emotions. They've seen what happens when you let anger lead. And they've learned that peace feels better. You can't shake them easily because their stability no longer depends on external circumstances. They've anchored themselves within. The calm after the storm also brings emotional clarity. When you face destruction, you begin to see through illusions. The false promises, the toxic attachments, the masks people wear. You no longer get caught in the chaos of others because you've done the hard work of understanding your own. You know when to engage and when to let go. You don't need to win arguments, prove your point, or convince anyone of your worth. The calm heart simply knows, and that knowing is unshakable. When calm becomes your nature, you stop living in reaction mode. You realize that most of the pain in life doesn't come from events themselves, but from your resistance to them. You learn to breathe through discomfort, to observe your emotions without being consumed by them. The storm once taught you how to survive. The calm teaches you how to live. You stop being addicted to intensity. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You begin to choose peace even when it's boring, silence even when it's awkward, solitude even when it's lonely. because you've learned that calmness is sacred. It's not emptiness, it's freedom. Those who have found calm after the storm also carry a gentle strength. They no longer need to dominate or control others. Their power lies in restraint. They don't need to prove they're right because their peace speaks louder than words. They understand that reacting is easy, but responding with wisdom is rare. And so, when others throw chaos at them, they meet it with stillness. When others raise their voices, they lower theirs. When the world demands a fight, they choose peace. Not because they're weak, but because they value their energy too much to waste it. This calm becomes their compass. It guides their choices, their relationships, their dreams. It tells them when something aligns with their peace and when it doesn't. They no longer chase people or opportunities. They attract them. Because calm energy is magnetic. It draws in those who seek balance, clarity, and depth. The storm taught them chaos, but peace made them powerful. The calm after the storm also brings humility. When you've been broken, you realize how fragile life really is. You stop judging others harshly because you know how easily things can fall apart. You start to forgive more easily. Not out of weakness, but out of understanding. You know that everyone is fighting battles you can't see. Your calm doesn't make you distant. It makes you compassionate. You can love without clinging, help without rescuing, and give without expecting. That's what real peace does. It softens your edges while deepening your strength. Eventually, calm becomes your natural state. You no longer chase it, you embody it. You wake up each morning without dread. You move through your days with a quiet awareness that whatever happens, you will handle it. The storms no longer terrify you because they've become familiar teachers. You don't beg for an easier life. You cultivate a stronger mind. You've learned that peace is not the reward, it's the practice. Every time you breathe deeply instead of reacting, every time you walk away instead of fighting, every time you let go instead of clinging, you are practicing calm. That is the calm after the storm. Not a moment of silence, but a lifetime of wisdom. It's the peace that comes from surviving chaos and realizing that the storm was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal who you truly are beneath all the noise. When you find that calm, nothing outside you can shake it. Because once you've faced your darkest nights and found your own light, no storm, no matter how fierce, can take it from you again. There is something unmistakable about the eyes of someone who has been through hell and made it back. They hold a depth that cannot be faked, a stillness that no amount of pretending can imitate. You see it in the way they look at the world, slowly, thoughtfully, as if they've seen too much to ever take things at face value again. Their eyes are not loud or desperate for attention. They don't scan rooms for validation or recognition. They observe quietly, absorbing everything, the tone behind words, the silence between sentences, the pain that hides behind smiles. These are eyes that see deeply, not because they are searching for flaws, but because they have learned to see beneath the surface of life. When someone has been through profound pain, their way of perceiving others changes. They no longer see people as black and white, good or bad, right or wrong. They've lived long enough in the gray to know that everyone carries their own invisible battles. Their suffering has turned their gaze into something compassionate. They don't rush to judge, they seek to understand. Because they remember what it was like to be misunderstood when they were breaking inside and nobody noticed. That experience reshapes them. It teaches them to look beyond appearances, beyond moods, beyond masks. They begin to see people not for who they pretend to be, but for who they truly are beneath the layers. Those who have been through hell know that the most painful stories are often the quietest. They've learned that people hide their wounds behind laughter, achievements, and strength. So, their eyes become instruments of empathy. They notice the small tremor in a voice, the way someone's smile fades too quickly, the exhaustion hidden behind the words, "I'm fine." They pick up on the details that others overlook because their own pain has made them attentive. Their seeing is not invasive, it's gentle. It's the kind of awareness that makes others feel safe, not exposed. They carry a silent understanding, a language of compassion that requires no words. The eyes that see deeply have seen darkness, not just in others, but within themselves. They've looked in the mirror and faced the parts of their soul they once tried to hide. They've confronted guilt, fear, grief, and shame. And by doing so, they've learned to see the same complexity in others. When they look at someone, they don't just see behavior, they see history. They see the child who wasn't loved enough, the person who learned to survive by pretending to be strong, the soul still searching for a place to rest. That kind of vision doesn't come from intellect, it comes from empathy born through pain. When you've walked through your own shadows, you begin to see light differently. You stop being impressed by perfection and start being moved by authenticity. You stop craving polished exteriors and start cherishing the raw, unfiltered truth. The eyes that have seen hell are no longer fooled by appearances because they've learned how easily beauty can hide brokenness. They no longer envy anyone's life because they understand that everyone has a story. And no story is free from struggle. That awareness changes everything. It makes them slower to speak, quicker to listen, and infinitely kinder. These eyes also see patterns that others miss. When you've lived through trauma, you become skilled at reading energy, not out of choice, but out of survival. You learn to sense tension before it erupts, deceit before it's confessed, distance before it's spoken. It's a gift born from necessity, a skill sharpened in pain. But over time, those who heal learn to use that gift differently. Instead of living on alert, they use their sensitivity to connect more deeply. Their perception becomes a tool for compassion, not protection. They can comfort someone without words, simply by being present, because they see what needs soothing before it's even expressed. Eyes that see deeply also see beauty in places others overlook. When you've been stripped bare by suffering, you begin to notice the sacred in the ordinary. You see poetry in sunlight filtering through curtains, gratitude in a simple meal, grace in a shared silence. Pain teaches you to slow down, to notice, to appreciate. You realize that life's beauty doesn't shout, it whispers. And because you've been forced to listen to your own pain in silence, you become attuned to those whispers. You no longer rush through life, you observe it, savor it. Your gaze softens, your judgments fade, and your awareness deepens. But eyes that see deeply also carry weight. They've seen what others ignore: cruelty, loss, betrayal, injustice. They've witnessed the fragility of love, the impermanence of everything. That awareness can be heavy, even isolating at times. It's hard to unsee what life has shown you. It's hard to pretend ignorance once you've experienced depth. But over time, those who have truly healed learn to carry that weight with grace. They understand that seeing deeply doesn't mean drowning in what you see. It means holding it with compassion, letting it inform you but not consume you. It means knowing that the world's pain is vast, but so is its capacity for renewal. People with deep, seeing eyes often find themselves as healers, mentors, or quiet anchors for others. They become the person friends call when they need to be understood. Their presence brings calm because their perception is rooted in acceptance, not judgment. They don't need to fix everything, they simply witness. And in that witnessing, others feel seen in ways they've never felt before. That's the real power of eyes that see deeply. They remind others of their own worth, simply by acknowledging their existence. The ability to see deeply is also what protects a person from bitterness. When you understand that everyone's behavior is shaped by pain, it's harder to hate. When you recognize that cruelty often masks fear and arrogance often hides insecurity, you start to forgive more easily. You realize that understanding doesn't excuse hurtful actions, but it frees you from resentment. The one who sees deeply knows that compassion doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means seeing the wounded child inside the aggressor, the fear behind the defense, the longing beneath the anger. That kind of seeing transforms relationships, not by changing others, but by changing how you relate to them. There's also a certain humility that comes with deep vision. You realize how limited your understanding once was, how often you misjudged people or situations. You stop assuming you know anyone's story. You become curious instead of certain. You listen more and talk less. And in that humility, your heart stays open, not because you're blind to darkness, but because you've made peace with it. You understand that darkness and light are not enemies but teachers, both essential in shaping who we become. Eyes that see deeply don't just look outward, they continue looking inward. The person who has faced themselves once knows the importance of doing it again and again. They remain self-aware, honest about their emotions, gentle with their own flaws. They understand that to truly see others, they must keep seeing themselves, not through judgment, but through truth. Their awareness is not stagnant, it evolves. Every storm they survive adds another layer of depth to their gaze, another level of understanding to their soul. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about these eyes is that they still see hope. Despite everything they've witnessed, the heartbreaks, the endings, the losses, they still find beauty. They still look for goodness, still believe in second chances, still see light where others see nothing but darkness. That is the mark of someone who has truly healed. Not that they forget the storm, but that they learn to see through it and beyond it. Their eyes no longer carry just pain. They carry perspective, love, and wisdom. So, when you meet someone whose eyes seem to hold both fire and water, both sorrow and serenity, know that you are in the presence of someone who has seen deeply. They've looked into the abyss and chosen to keep looking for light. Their gaze is not heavy because of what it carries, but sacred because of what it understands. They remind us that seeing deeply is not about knowing everything. It's about feeling everything and still choosing love. Because when the eyes have seen hell and still search for beauty, that is when they truly begin to see. When someone has been through hell and made it back, one of the most profound transformations you will notice in them is the way they embrace silence. Not the silence of defeat or avoidance, but the silence of power. It is the quiet that comes from no longer needing to explain, prove, or defend who they are. Their strength no longer shouts, it whispers. It's not found in noise, attention, or validation, but in the calm confidence of someone who has survived their own storms and no longer needs the world's approval to stand tall. Silence becomes sacred to them because it's the space where they rebuilt themselves. When the world turned its back, when no one understood their pain, silence was the only companion that remained. And in that solitude, they learned to listen, not to the chaos around them, but to the voice within. It's in that quiet that they rediscovered their worth, their clarity, their will to continue. That's why, when they return from their darkness, they carry an aura of stillness. They don't react impulsively. They don't speak just to fill space. They choose their words with intention, and their silence carries more weight than the loudest argument. People who've endured great pain often come to realize that not every battle needs to be fought aloud. They learn that some truths don't need to be shouted to be real. They have seen how easily energy is wasted on trying to convince people who aren't ready to understand. They no longer chase validation because they've lived through moments when no one believed in them. And they rose anyway. So now, instead of explaining their worth, they embody it quietly. Their silence is no longer emptiness, it's peace. It's the peace that comes from knowing that what others think of them has no power compared to what they've already overcome. This kind of silence is also a form of self-protection. Those who've been through hell have learned how precious their energy is. They no longer give it freely to conflict, gossip, or people who drain them. They've learned that silence can be the most elegant form of boundary. It's a way of saying, I don't owe my peace to your chaos. When provoked, they don't retaliate with noise. They withdraw with dignity. When misunderstood, they don't plead to be seen. They let time reveal truth. Their silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the understanding that sometimes walking away speaks louder than any words ever could. Silence also becomes their space of reflection. They've seen what happens when emotions go unchecked. The damage, the regret, the exhaustion. So now they pause before they speak, before they react, before they decide. They've learned that stillness doesn't mean inaction, it means intention. It's the pause that gives them power. While others rush to respond, they listen, not just to others, but to their intuition. That inner voice that once got drowned out by pain has become their most trusted guide. Silence has taught them discernment, the ability to know what deserves their energy and what deserves their quiet departure. But this kind of silence isn't only defensive, it's deeply creative. When you've been through hell, you realize that true healing doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in quiet. In the moments between breakdown and breakthrough, you start to see yourself clearly. You start to hear your heart again. You realize that the answers you were chasing were never out there. They were always within you, waiting for you to stop and listen. That's why people who've endured suffering often emerge with profound insight or artistry. Pain pushes them into silence, and silence gives birth to wisdom. Their stillness becomes fertile ground for transformation. There's a profound humility that comes with this quiet strength. They don't need to announce their growth because they live it. They don't post every victory or narrate every wound. They've realized that not everything sacred needs to be shared. Not every battle needs an audience, and not every success requires applause. The deeper their self-awareness grows, the more they retreat from noise. They've seen how easily words can be misunderstood, how quickly vulnerability can be exploited. So, they choose to hold some things close, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Some truths are too precious to expose to those who wouldn't understand. Yet, their silence is not detachment, it's depth. When they do speak, their words carry the gravity of someone who has seen both darkness and dawn. Their sentences are not filled with fluff or ego. They are deliberate, honest, and grounded. When they comfort others, it's not with cliches but with presence. They know how to sit in someone's pain without rushing to fix it, because they understand the healing power of simply being there. Their silence doesn't isolate them, it connects them more deeply to others. It allows them to listen fully, to see people clearly, to understand without needing to dominate the conversation. Those who find strength in silence also develop a deep patience with life. They've learned that rushing doesn't make healing come faster. They know that growth takes time, sometimes years of quiet evolution that no one else witnesses. So they stop comparing their journey to anyone else's. They stop competing because they understand that everyone's timeline is different. Their silence holds surrender, not to defeat but to trust. Trust in timing, in purpose, in the unseen forces that guided them through their darkest days. They've learned to move with grace instead of haste. In relationships, this silence shows up as emotional maturity. They no longer engage in meaningless drama or chase people who can't meet them halfway. They know that peace is priceless, and they won't trade it for attention or temporary validation. When someone tries to provoke them, They choose silence because they know that reacting gives power away. When someone hurts them, they don't seek revenge, they choose distance. When they love deeply, quietly, and purely, without conditions. Their love doesn't demand recognition. It's simply expressed through consistency, understanding, and calm presence. Even in grief, their silence speaks volumes. Having lived through loss before, they no longer try to fill the void with distractions. They sit with their sorrow, allowing it to shape them rather than shatter them. They know that silence is not the absence of healing, but the space where healing happens. They've learned that not every emotion needs to be expressed aloud, that sometimes the most profound strength lies in simply enduring with grace. Their quiet resilience becomes a beacon for others, proof that peace is possible even after devastation. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about those who find strength in silence is how effortlessly they inspire others without trying to. People are drawn to their calm, to their steadiness, to the unspoken assurance that radiates from them. Their presence reminds others that they too can survive, that they too can choose peace over chaos, composure over reaction, grace over noise. Their silence becomes a language of healing in a world addicted to noise. In the end, those who have been through hell and back understand something most people never will. Silence is not the absence of power. It is its purest form. True strength doesn't need to declare itself. It exists quietly, steadily, unshaken by external chaos. When they sit in silence now, it is not because they are broken or empty, but because they are whole. They've made peace with their past, they've befriended their solitude, and they've learned that the most powerful response to life's cruelty is not always a roar. Sometimes it's the quiet, unwavering heartbeat that says, "I'm still here."